Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is...
A Geek for Fun.
And Steve.
And Alfie is back, so he picked our topic tonight. And what are we reviewing tonight, Alfie?
Tonight we are reviewing the 2026 hit indie movie, Obsession.
Indeed. So I remember this came out pretty recently. Like you said, let's review Obsession. I'm like, I don't think I can get to a theater in time. And you're like, no, it's already out of theaters. I'm like, oh, it is? Yeah. So I was a little surprised by that, given that it seemed to have kind of a little bit of buzz. But the buzz I was hearing was mostly from you and your wife, and it was pretty negative buzz. So what made you want to talk about it?
Well, it was mainly for the thing. So, first of all, interesting thing about the release window is like it was supposed to come on digital like 2 weeks after it released because they didn't think it was going to really make a budget to keep it in cinemas too long, and then it became kind of like a trend, like an internet trend to see this movie. So they extended the cinema window, which is something that rarely happens for, especially like movies like with this little bit of budget. So the reason I wanted to talk about is. Mainly, it is from the wife. We had an interesting experience with this movie, and it was a very specific, fair experience. And then the aftermath of that, I'm glad you avoided of it, but like a lot of my like social media feed became about this movie specifically. We also didn't get to talk about a lot of like upcoming young directors. Kind of like we're talking about a lot of like, oh, this is where this trend is dying, this is where this type of cinema is going away, and I think this is a really good example of kind of where cinema seems to be heading. We've had a lot with like Backrooms, and I know Markiplier made a thing of like YouTubers becoming film directors, and then that becoming like one of the ways where people can make movies under budget and still get a big audience, and then make this kind of something that speaks to a younger generation demographic. So I think that's an interesting angle to talk to that we don't really do in Geeky Gentlemen. And also I feel like this movie does have some stuff to talk about in it, but yeah, spoilers, I guess. I'm not super... I don't, like, hate this movie. I more so hate kind of the environment around this movie itself, and I think that's interesting to talk about versus, say, like, the film itself.
Interesting. Because, yeah, I didn't get to have the theater experience. I just kind of, like, vicariously heard of yours. Yeah. And I was like, huh. So, like, the whole time I'm, like, waiting for something to cue me, because from what I remember, because Erin talked about this quite a bit on her feed, so this is a bit of like a weird episode for anyone to listen to, because it's just going to be like so vicariously through others. Yeah, but like I remember hearing about it on the feed of like the theater like laughing at odd points, and you know, I'm just watching it, and there were maybe a couple moments where I felt like the lead actress playing Nikki maybe hammed it up a little too much, but I didn't feel like anything was intended to make you laugh. And so I was reminded of like back when I saw like bootleg tapings of the Medea plays, and like there's I think it's Diary of a Mad Black Woman, where the like opening scene or whatever is the one abusive husband like kicking her out of his mansion and shit, and like he makes her humiliate herself. Like he's like, yeah, you want to stay here so bad? Well, get down on the ground and bark like a dog. And then she does it, and like that got a laugh from the audience when it's like very clearly not intended to. So I can't help but wonder if like maybe that's a little bit of what was going on for you guys or something. I don't know.
I
Uh,
definitely think that was the case.
yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. Like I watched this and I guess I'm surprised that there's any kind of social media buzz because I just can't imagine personally having strong feelings about this movie. I didn't think it was like awful, but I also didn't think it was like particularly good. It kind of felt it kind of felt like back in the day just going to the video store and getting, a shitty B horror movie. This maybe had a little bit more going for it than that, but I don't know, I'm reminded very much of like 2001 Maniacs or the Edgar Allan Poe Black Cat movie or some shit that, just those asylum pictures that got released straight to DVD is what this made me think of.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that people have kind of latched on to this thing as like the greatest horror movie of all time or like the worst horror movie of all time because I really don't think there's enough here to warrant any kind of discourse. I like it. I think it's a pretty good movie. I think it's got a solid central metaphor, a solid central performance. It's solidly directed, but like that's kind of all it is at the end of the day. It's like it's a solid movie that is kind of limited in its abilities to do anything interesting, but it's effective for what it is. And like this screams of this is a May horror movie that you'd see in the theater, enjoy, and then kind of forget about. And I just couldn't believe how many people were just obsessing over this movie or talking about it like it was an instant classic or that it was the worst thing ever made. Because I just don't think there's enough here to go one way or the other. I think this, if you watch enough movies in a year, this is a thoroughly average movie. I think I liked it more than either of you did, but it's kind of odd that anyone could have a conversation that's more than a few minutes long about this. I
Oh, good.
think that I think that the sort of core idea about this that obsession is not so much Nikki but Bear, and that Bear is the bad guy here, and that it's kind of a metaphor for the way insecure young men project that insecurity onto women into a form of kind of entitlement to them that's bordering on, in this case, literally in the form of rape. And I think all that stuff's kind of interesting. But there is also just a little bit of like, yeah, this was definitely made by a YouTuber who's like 26 years old because he's got the hook, but he's really got nothing else.
Yeah. I don't know, Alfie. What are your general thoughts coming out of this one after like you've sat on it the longest, and this would be what your second watch through now?
Yeah, this is my second watch through now, and I'm glad I got to do a second one. So basically, my first fair experience, unfortunately, was one of the worst fair experiences of my life. Not necessarily for me, but just because of how bad I felt. Like, it was just a very uncomfortable watch. Where, and I spoke to Erin before. She said she wanted to share this because she thought we've spoken to friends and stuff like that who had similar experiences, and then friends who had a experience like that, but then enjoyed it, like enjoyed being put in that state and kind of like the horror movie makes me feel uncomfortable kind of way. So I think it's interesting how specifically this is hitting the female audience quite a bit differently. And horror has always been something that is more, compared to a lot of other genres, is quite claimed by the gay and female community. And I think that's something where this is something that TikTok and algorithms and stuff like that have picked up on this with like viral clips of someone freaking out. And if you look at how this is shot, like how every camera angle, every composition is almost framed for TikTok videos. It's framed in a very square. You can watch this on your phone. You're not missing any information. Angle, and I think that's to its detriment as a film, but I think as a marketing play, it's kind of genius for the era it's coming out in. But I think because of that, when we went to the theater, people just got in the mindset that this is something you're meant to react to very loudly and very kind of like when the bad stuff happens, you shriek. When the uncomfortable stuff happens, you just start laughing. And so that became a very, very uncomfortable experience when we walked out. When we watched it recently, later today, actually, it was completely different because you're in the comfort of your own home and you can see exactly what you're talking about, Ian, where it's just like it's not being played for laughs, it's not being played for that kind of thing. It's a lot more boring. It's a lot duller of a watch. There's not really much exciting going on. There's not really a lot of character stuff to delve into outside of the central hook. The soundtrack and like audio cues are very like on the nose of like, this is meant to be shocking. This is meant to make you react a certain way. So like everything is, I don't think anything's like incompetently done. It's just like you said, Steve. It feels like a young guy with his first big, movie, making the mistakes young guys with big first movies make. And I'm interested to see where his career goes from there. But it's also unfortunate. I feel like when people's first movies like this do so well, and that then becomes the style, your flaws and the stuff that isn't really working on a cinematic level are what people go to you for now, because they want it to be just like that. They want it to just be like another version of Obsession. So Fast
Yeah, I
Furious
think that
really...
might. I think that might be like the Shyamalan effect, where like
yeah.
Sixth Sense just did so well, and then suddenly like, so what's the twist of your next movie gonna be? And then like that's the thing he became like known for, but that's a really hard thing to pull off in a consistent way. But yeah, so
what's interesting about...
I'm sorry, I still wanted to go to Alfie because you were about to talk more about your second watch through.
The second watch through was much more similar to your experience, Ian, where again, like, this isn't an offensively bad movie. This isn't something that really I'm ever going to want to watch again. This is just something where it has some decent scenes, and I do think the performances on the whole are good. I think they do fall into sometimes overacting, but I also think that's necessarily a direction or like a script issue than the actors themselves. I think they're all pretty talented, and very happy to see Nikki's actress after Superman and Lois, where she was Jordan Kent's girlfriend, make it to the big leagues, and that, which is just, it's really weird to see her everywhere and like talk shows and shit now, where she was Lana Lang's daughter that was like a side character. It's really really funny. So I'm happy for her career that she's kind of like skyrocketed to become like a face of new gen horror, basically. But yeah, the second watch for it was more boring. I do think there's stuff to talk about in terms of the choices and like how well maybe it villainizes, how maybe it doesn't go far enough. But I'll let Steve talk because I don't want him to miss his point.
Oh no, you're good. I was just gonna say, I think there's a lot of credit being hurled at Curry Barker at like the YouTube style of director thing, and even you guys were just mentioning about like, is he going to get pigeonholed into doing the same thing over and over again? I think the thing that kind of bothers me about that is he's not the first guy to do this, and his style is just aping other people who've already done this. Like, this movie is visually borrowing a lot from Barbarian, which came out like 3 or 4 years ago. That was another YouTuber who turned director and made a critically acclaimed horror movie that did really well, and now gets to make horror movies on the regular. And then Talk to Me came out, I think, around the same time as Barbarian, and that was a pair of Australian directors who were also previously YouTubers. And like, you watch Talk to Me or you watch Barbarian, and a lot of the overemphasis of the music in certain scenes, the way the night scenes are lit like shit, but there's a bunch of like warm lighting all around people's faces and stuff. A lot of that is just what Zach Krieger and whatever the name of the directors for Talk to Me have been doing. So like, I feel like you're kind of just getting a copy of a copy with this. Like, if Curry Barker goes on and makes more movies, I don't think he showed enough originality in this to warrant any kind of perspective that Zach Krieger hasn't already done. So I think that's kind of silly. I remember watching this opening weekend in the theater, and I'm kind of glad I did, because Alfie, what you're describing is the thing that I didn't understand, where like everyone is just having very visceral reactions in the theater, almost like they're trying to record their TikTok reactions to it. Yeah. And I'm so glad I watched it in a largely kind of empty theater with a bunch of other people that were just watching a random movie on a Friday night, because no one in my audience was like that. Some of the scenes did get laughs, but I think there are a lot of intentional jokes in here, and I think that's part of the tonal problem. Like, for example, when he goes back to buy a second One Wish Willow and there's a new store owner. Like, that's dumb. That's such a dumb joke, but that's a very obvious joke. I think there's
like
a lot of...
that scene makes perfect sense for me to laugh at, but like the impression I was getting is like people were laughing at like the freak out scenes or something.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem, is I think the movie, it doesn't have enough control over itself to let you know when a certain scene is supposed to be funny versus scary. And so, like, certain scenes I remember laughing at in the theater and being like, oh, that's not supposed to be funny. It's just because it's directed in a way that makes it seem like it's supposed to be funny.
The one that stuck out to me the most is just like I was just like, oh my god, really? Is when they do the hard cut from them in the restaurant to them, well, effectively Nikki being raped because, people were fucking dying at that one, and I was like, what the
that's
fuck?
wild.
Yeah, people were like genuinely like, oh, haha, isn't that so funny? He fucked her anyway. Like, it was rough. That was a really rough one.
That was one of those scenes where I feel like the movie was kind of under its best sensibilities, because I think that's a scene that does a really good job of saying Bear is the bad guy here. Like, that's the scene where, like, this is unambiguously, this is him doing the wrong thing. It's weird that people would laugh at that scene, because I feel like there's also a lot of like misinterpretation of the metaphor here. And there's a few different things you could say, but like, I don't know. I think if this movie has one big central flaw for me, it's that it's not subtle at all, and it's very limited in what it wants to say. But what it wants to say seems extremely clear to me. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's been a thing as well in terms of like the social media presence of this thing, is I've seen people acting like it's the first horror movie they've ever watched in their lives. And for maybe a lot of people, it might just be, which is fine. I've got no issue people being excited about it. But there's entire TikTok channels about understanding obsession, and like and everyone has like this is what this really meant, but it feels like
Peekaboo explained she was there the whole time.
I've seen so many like fan theories where it's like she's Bear's cat reincarnated. No, she's Bear's grandma.
That's hilarious.
No, but that's why she brings the dead body, is because the cat brings food and like shit like that. Like, as like people going so hard for this thing as like fueling algorithm, and it reminds me of, do you remember like right before Infinity War, like after Civil War, like that MCU time period where every single YouTuber was like MCU Easter eggs explained, and they'd get so much bank off it. Obsession feels like that's that crowd, that the younger version of that is looking for that, moved away from YouTube, went to Twitter and TikTok, and that's the boost from it. Is this movie, for whatever reason, has like captured the zeitgeist of people wanting to analyze every single frame, which is truly amazing, because like there's not much going on in the frame in any of these shows. Like,
your point about everything being centrally framed, like, I did not pick up on that until you said it, and it made like so much more sense for like, particularly like the camera reveal or the shot reveal for like the duct taped ass door, which can't I just say, as someone who works with a tape gun every day, really inefficient use of tape. The reason that it got out is not because the tape was not strong enough, but because she put it mostly on the door as opposed to the door frame. So just, I know she's not in her right mind and whatever, but like, just from a professional level, shit use of the duct tape material.
She claims to love him, yet she's bad at keeping him hostage. What does that mean?
Yeah. No, but like the way that shot is, there's just so much frame open around him, and I did notice that a lot. Like it's the scene right before the duct tape frame reveal, I believe, where like she's sitting down and he's standing up and stuff, and you get that, like, there's just this open ass shot around them where you're seeing like so much of the wall and the ceiling, and she's sitting and he's standing, and even when he stands up he's not taking up the full frame. And I was like, why would you cut it, like, why would you frame it like that? Because that was like one of the first notes that I ever got on stuff that I shot when I was a teenager. Of like, you've just got too much empty frame, and I was like, what does that mean? And like they just took a screen cap and like drew around all the space that wasn't being taken up by my subject, and I'm like, and they're like, that, look how much wasted space you have in your frame. And so I've always, personally taken note of that, and it's something that I now notice more frequently in other things. But Alfie, you saying, well, it's meant for like TikTok crops, so that they can put it in and have a fucking AI voice explain the context of the scene and like the actual motions of what the characters are doing that you could see anyway. And then also put it all in subtitles to try to keep your attention while this is going on at the bottom. It just the empty, that makes the empty frame make sense, because now you can crop it for the phone, and you can you'll have space for the subtitles to go in and everything. It made perfect sense of all that. So thank you for saying that, because I was sitting there going, man, it's just not very well shot because there's just a lot of open frame.
Yeah.
So really, what I'm hearing is that note that I got was just wrong. I was just like 10 to 15 years ahead of my time.
Yeah, very much. Like you'd be, if Ian 15 years ago was right now, you'd be working for A24, bro. Like you'd be fucking cooking.
Man. Yeah, I don't know. This one was interesting. Can we just talk about my favorite scene in the movie? Because this is the shit I spend hours thinking about, because it's never gonna fucking happen. But embarrassing amounts of time in my life have been devoted to this. Of like, how would I explain to someone a magical situation? So get that on film of you make one wish. And you just gotta word it right. You gotta make the right wish with this, so it will unfuck my life. Okay, just word it like, I wish I had $1 billion. No, I just down for the longest time.
That was hilarious. I loved that bit.
And then the fact that he dies because he's like, dude, I've got $1 billion. What do I do with it?
That was so funny.
I wanted to make a sketch. Years ago, I had the idea of making a comedy sketch of a lawyer ad, but it was gonna be for magical contracts. So I was gonna start with someone getting a genie lamp and wishing for a 13-inch dick, and then they just start running around because the genie put a 13-inch dick in their ass. And they're just gonna come on screen in a really bad suit. Don't let this happen to you. Call the wish attorneys. Present the genie with a fucking book-ass contract of a wish. And it just felt like that. It's like, I got $1 billion. It's just I love the scale of $1 billion is probably really accurately portrayed there. Just it rains down for so fucking long. I love my favorite scene in the fucking movie. Just brilliant filmmaking all around.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
The gag where he just gets shot as soon as he entered, I died laughing. I thought that was so funny.
Do you have a favorite scene, Steve?
So I don't mean it as a backhand compliment, because the lighting is very bad in this. It's just egregiously bad. But at a certain point, you just kind of have to accept that movies look like shit now and move on. So we won't harp on that. But I really like the scene when he wakes up in the middle of the night and she's just watching him sleep in the corner of the room. I thought... Yeah, there's something about... They put some prosthetics on her face so that it looks more exaggerated when she's crying, and the voice she has, and there's just something about that scene that's just so deeply unsettling, especially the bit when he tries to pretend to go back to sleep, knowing full well that she is still staring at him. There's just something terrifying about that. I really, really liked that bit, and I thought it was a good sort of... I thought it was a good moment to kind of feel like Bear is going to get what's coming to him throughout the events of this movie. this is going to be something that ends in him getting deeply and ironically punished, like a lot of Monkey's Paw stories end up doing. So I liked that, and I liked how exaggerated like her laugh and like her kind of manic persona was in that moment. I thought all of that was really good.
Yeah, I just thought of another one of the framing issues where I just noticed it, and it was like it was so bad because it was like so obvious with what they were doing was the scene with Sarah in the car. Where it's like,
Yeah.
you notice the shot is like extra wide on her side. I'm like, yeah, okay, when we get a jump scare, she's gonna come through the window and kill her. And that's why they framed the shot that way, because otherwise, and it's like, yeah, nope, that's exactly what happens. Um,
We used to have this thing where you could frame multiple subjects and just move the camera instead of cutting multiple times. But maybe it's just lost art at this point.
maybe. But yeah, like to the point of her like watching him sleep and just the creepiness. I didn't mind that one so much. What started to bother me because it just felt like unfair to the like the conceit, I guess, is when her movement became so unnatural. Like I'm pretty sure there's a time where they just straight up reversed the footage on her.
Yeah, towards the end.
Yeah, and I'm just like I don't know, like the magical conceit of the film is that the wish box works and it starts to like split her from like reality or whatever. But like to the point where she's, doing physically impossible movements and stuff just for the creepy factor felt like cheap to me.
Yeah, it kind of undercuts that larger thematic thing of if Bear is supposed to be the bad guy, then why does the movie rest so much on horror movie monster cliches for Nikki? Because at that point, it makes her more terrifying than from the audience's perspective than what Bear is doing. And I mean, that's kind of the biggest problem of like it kind of pulls his punches with him a little too much, where the last few minutes of the movie, it's just a straightforward horror movie. There's nothing subversive about the antagonist protagonist relationship in that moment, because so much of what Nikki is doing is just, oh, now she's just a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like that is also again, talking about this makes me so like, man, the art of this whole fucking enterprise is being morphed in a way I do not like, because the reason for that isn't in the film itself. It's so people can make videos that Bear is the bad guy, because the movie itself is framing Bear as the bad guy, but it's letting people who want to sound smart be like, well, despite Nikki acting so crazy and being crazy, Bear's actually the one. If you look closer, like it's
If you look closely, you mean look at the script?
right. Like they changed some aspects. Like, they posted like some aspects of the original script as well, where they changed it to make Bear less of a bad guy, I guess. Which is an odd choice, and they've gone back and forth and like that, and I think they realized like part of the whole point about it is engaging the discourse. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm not really faulting them as so I'm faulting like to put my Steve cap on, the environment of which we talk about these things in the first place is dictated to reward this. So they're making money from it. Their careers are getting bigger. Like, of course, don't really have any problem with the filmmakers themselves, the people involved in that. But the idea that you are designing something where you have a central hook, you have a very Twilight Zone-esque, this is our character who maybe has some sympathetic elements, and maybe if you're turning your brain off, you're just like, oh, he's just a regular guy, quote unquote, but it's really a takedown on the nice guy archetype and the damage those people can cause, and the idea of being in love with someone you don't know anything about and then rejecting that idea, and the harm that causes to people. Like, this is, again, like Steve said up front, is a very central strong hook, but then finding ways to extend the runtime of that hook in a way that will keep a constantly on their phone generation interested. You have to have Nikki do more and more escalating shit to keep it entertaining to keep them be like, oh, what's she gonna do next? What's the next fucking freak out gonna look like? Which completely undercuts the point of the movie where you're watching for the freakouts, which are meant to be horrifying. The fact that this dude is making her have these fucking freakouts because she can't control her body, be it whatever the One Wish Willow is. I know there's been some like he's spoken that it's not like meant to be like a possession type of thing. I don't know what you'd call it at that point.
I
Different
mean, it's a monkey's paw perfectly.
Yeah.
I think my problem with the framing of stuff is, you know, we get a little bit of it because we get that montage where they appear on like a surface level, be perfectly happy, and that's meant to like show a gap of time happening. But I think one of my problems with it is like the freakouts and the strangeness when it comes just starts coming so quick that it starts to feel kind of like dissociated from the actual realities of what Bear is doing. And I don't know. Like, if they meant for him to be... I'm not going to sit here and... Bear isn't actually the villain. No, but like, if they meant for him to be more villainous in a earlier draft of the script, I think they should have kept to it, because ultimately the dude breaks the thing and doesn't think it's actually going to work. He thinks it's like a strange little novelty thing. If maybe he was the one that was more into like crystals and energy and stuff, that maybe would have put more emphasis on it or something for me. But I just feel like when the freakouts start happening, it just feels like way too much, way too fast, and that's what makes it maybe drift more into the comedic realm than the horror realm. And then within the context of, is Bear really the villain, I feel like they maybe went a little too soft on him, scripting wise, in that, yeah, this is all his fault, he did all this, but also like he didn't, clearly this is not what he intended. And like the sympathy that you get for Bear throughout the movie is him dealing with the unintended consequences of his actions. And I feel like maybe just, you know, lean more into one direction than the other might be the thing that's necessary here. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird that like the One Wish Willow as a conceit feels like it kind of breaks the central metaphor because it doesn't actually require him to do anything that's representative of his worst qualities, right? It's like you said, he doesn't think it's going to work. And we've done a lot of stories like this over time, right? Like every TV show that's lasted more than 5 seasons will do an episode where someone tries to make a love potion for somebody else and it horribly backfires. Like this is a classic idea. And the reason a lot of that stuff works is because someone is taking some kind of active part in their own demise by doing this, as opposed to breaking a novelty toy and realizing that the novelty toy is real. So like his action and his consequence feel kind of disconnected in that way. And then I think at the end they're trying to overcompensate for that, because the end of the movie just feels like it tacks on way too many things without doing enough to resolve any one of them. Like he goes to the bathroom to kill himself, but he's a coward, so he can't kill himself. So then he swallows a bunch of pills, but then Nikki breaks the One Wish Willow, but then the pills actually work. And it just feels like any one of those things, given like proper time and dialogue and motivation, could have been an interesting ironic punishment for him. But not all of them in the span of 5 minutes.
Yeah, I did kind of like the moment where he's about to throw up the pills, because even then he couldn't go through with it, and then she break. Side note: her breaking the One Wish Willow also is a continuity error. Like, because when he comes in the room and asks her if she would do anything to prove that she loves him, he opens the box and you already hear the sound effect from the box opening, and that should be a one-off. So then when he's in the bathroom and he's about to throw up and the audience gets the audio cue of the box opening, that's a continuity error, and it bugs me. It's an unforced continuity error as well, because like you didn't need him to open the box in the earlier scene. Maybe they just like that take better or something, I don't know. But yeah, like it goes through, and I quite like the idea of, oh no, she just wishes for the same thing he wished for. and then they're gonna be in like this awful trap together, and so now it's like this like really codependent relationship that's just toxic as fuck on both sides. Great, no, that's perfect way to end the movie. Oh, and then he dies, and then she just freaks out, and now her life's awful because she has to be on the run. Though I guess there's $1 billion across the street that she can use to be on the run.
Just steal the $1 billion.
Like, does she remember that he said that? Like, how aware is she? That's another thing with this that like stuck with me for a moment of like the I just had it and I lost it. The $1 billion. The scene earlier where she like asks him to just have mercy and just kill her before the other Nikki comes back. I don't know how I felt about that one. The idea that like I liked when Nikki was purely just trapped in the other side of the phone or whatever, and just had like those moments of just trying to kill herself, as opposed to, no, she can just have the agency to actually just talk and say, oh, yeah, I don't know. I didn't like that. It's very late in the movie, but it is just a touch I didn't care for.
I like that bit.
Yeah, okay.
I like that bit. I like that bit where they get to have the movie forces a situation where the characters can have a real conversation for a minute, and you get reminded once again from Nikki's perspective of, from her side, they were never together. That this was not her choice at all. And I think it is important that she gets to air that in a way that Bear actively rejects in order for any of this stuff to really work. So I like that bit quite a bit. I wish there was more of it, but I do like that scene.
I mean, I guess I would agree with you, but I guess maybe I just didn't like the context in which it was presented. Maybe if you'd like called the number and talked to her on the phone that way instead of just hearing her scream, I would have liked it a little bit more.
Yeah, you didn't like the idea that it's like she's in there to the extent where like she could talk to that degree, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's just against the conceit. It just feels like it's against its own rules that it's set up. It's not like set up hard rules, so I guess technically they can do whatever they want, but I don't know, it didn't have the right feel to it in that moment. It just felt cheap for me.
Yeah, it's also something where, to that extent of like, you can get like, oh, it's breaking the rules, but I think what you're saying is important because it's kind of the whole horror of the situation is that she's trapped in her body, experiencing these things that she does not want to do. Like, to get the true monstrosity of what Bear's doing and like what he's enabling, I guess, rather than what he's actively, he's just kind of enjoying the ride while pretending that he's not really enjoying the ride, because he's still fucking her and stuff. But the idea that she's having to go through all of that and she can't do anything about it is like the most tragic part, versus like, you have the phone, she's having the scream, is she somewhere else? Is that what she's doing when she's in there? Like, the fact that it's unclear what is happening to her goes to, again, the point of like letting him off the hook a little too easily, you know? Like, it's trying to, like, why don't you just kill me? And he says like, oh, what's so bad about being with me? I think that's good because that's very much like, he is fully thinking of himself purely in this situation when she's literally begging him to kill her. But at the same time, the phone scene is more so like, you've put her in a situation, it's not really her, she's not really there, you know? Like, it's undercutting something that would hit a lot harder if you just pick the rule, this is what's happening, she's suffering through this, or she's not, and then writing the script in a way where you're still presenting Bear as like, he's suffering for this because it's justified, because he's fucked this girl's entire life up, and he's actively using her as his little fucking pet almost to take care of, and the inconveniences and stuff are getting more and more exaggerated to where he can't ignore it. But he's, God help him, he's trying to ignore it every single time just so he can keep making it happen.
Yeah, I think that might have been more of the interesting angle. You brought up the Twilight Zone earlier, and I feel like this is very much like a Twilight Zone episode. But, you know, because the standards were just different at the time, it would have been handled, like, way different. And there would have been, like, a version of this made in the 60s where he just keeps trying to, like, leave town and she's just following him everywhere or some shit. would have been the way that like they dealt with that. So I don't know. It was an interesting one. I also don't love the magical like return of the ending that like everyone just keeps telling him, oh, just kill yourself and it fixes everything, and then he does, and like technically they were right, but also clearly fucking not. I don't know. I didn't love the ending of she's about to kill her. She's about to go all Romeo and Juliet, and then the magic wears off, and she's back in control of herself, but she's just, absolutely fucking terrified and just spends the last part of the filmed credits just screaming and crying, and I'm like, come on. Give her some agency back. Have her, like, snap back to reality and just fucking push the body off and, like, spit on him or something, man. Poor girl's been through enough. Oh. Yeah, I don't know. Didn't love this. Again, it's not terrible, but it just reminds me, maybe it's better than those old direct-to-DVD horror movies, but not by much. I wouldn't put this up there with, like, the classic slasher films or
Oh, no way.
like even anything like It Follows or whatever. Like it's funny because Steve, you mentioned what was it earlier? You mentioned the Barbarian movie. I didn't see that one, but like It Follows, Barbarian, all these movies have been doing like the strong metaphor horror movie, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, the metaphor.
Metaphor. There you go.
Yeah. I didn't make that term. That's what people have been calling it.
I mean, it's a good term. I think Steve Baxi created that term. Copyright Steve Baxi 2026.
No, I read that in a review of Talk to Me a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, like, ever since like It Follows and stuff, we've been doing this in horror a lot, and I think it's fine. Again, it feels like a Twilight Zone episode, so it's clearly not anything new, but it's something that we've been leaning into a lot harder just as like a filmmaking generation, and I'm fine with that. But I don't know, just that's like the fact that it's leaning into such a controversial topic feels like the only thing that it's really got going for it. And then like once you get past baby's first metaphor, you kind of start looking at the actual filmmaking itself, and maybe there is something to be laughed at in it, just in like, I wasn't laughing at the time, but I'm now laughing talking about it. So maybe if I'd TikTok brained myself enough to learn the whole movie via clips before I went to go see it in the fucking theaters, maybe I'd laugh in the theaters at some of the bits now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of goes to what Alfie was talking about at the beginning of why this movie might be interesting to talk about, which is the YouTube director of it all. Because I think the biggest thing you'll notice in any of these movies made by YouTubers, whether it's Talk to Me or Barbarian or this or Backrooms or whatever, is there's clearly not like a enough life experience or enough curiosity about a central idea to kind of mine it for where it works and where it doesn't, and instead it all kind of lives in this superficial territory. And a lot of the metaphor stuff that doesn't work is the same way, where there isn't enough of a curiosity about the idea to kind of dig into its meaning, the images you can create with it, the sort of central paranoia. Ideas have to exist in some kind of tension where you introduce it and then you proceed to show events that can negate it or reinforce it or cause it to seem more complicated than how it appeared originally. And a lot of these younger horror movie directors and a lot of these YouTube movie directors don't seem to understand is that having a pitch for content is not the same thing as having an idea for a movie.
Yeah,
but
so.
Chat GPT said that I asked Claude. And it said it was a great idea for a movie, Steve.
I'm of two minds because like we are, and when I was listening to what you guys were talking about the Supergirl episode, I think this is a nice segue because that is an example of a lot of money, a lot of focus group testing, a lot of people overthinking material, trying to create a universe, like a big brand that's going to sell toys and merchandise, etc., etc. And it hasn't really reached that audience. Versus this is a guy that just kind of has an idea and then fucks around with his friends and makes it, but people respond to that more. And I think there is something to be said about the uh, the flaws, the kind of like catering to a younger audience in ways that maybe aren't very good for storytelling purposes, but it's engaging them, right? Like it's getting people to talk about it, it's getting people to make theories or just spark some imagination, spark some creativity, even if it is maybe a lot of it is kind of like a more so like a hey, this is a really popular thing, I'm gonna hop on this bandwagon quick and write it out until it dies out. Because I'm starting to see like the obsession with obsession has started to die out. We'll see what his next movie becomes, but I wonder like the staying power this will have versus like Barbarian, like Steve said, also when it first dropped was really huge and had a lot of people talking about it, and Zach Krieger's made more since then that has kind of like kept him in the zeitgeist and like it's been okay, this guy has something to say, this guy has a voice, this guy has a vision. I wonder if that's going to be sustainable for these YouTube guys. I know Backrooms came out, I enjoyed Backrooms as well. I haven't seen the Markiplier movie. I know there was one Chris Stuckman, I think made a movie recently.
Yeah, Shelby Oaks.
Yeah, so like there's been a lot of stuff like this where they feel more like one hit wonder. I know Jacksepticeye is working on like the Elden Ring movie. I might know it's Bloodborne. Sorry, Bloodborne. It's like the Bloodborne movie. So there's a lot of like every single one of these big guys, or even like smaller YouTubers as well, are moving into this thing, and I hope at least it is different than the we're gonna pick a franchise and just churn something out. If it's from someone that has maybe it's still working with an IP, right? Like Zach Krieger's doing Resident Evil, right? But like at least it's his take on that idea. It's coming from a place of like an artist's vision versus we need to build a universe, we need to build a franchise, we need to keep this being made so we can make toys, we can make churning them out. I think that's what's responding to people. I think that's why the whole shift seems to be lower budget, bigger revenue instead of these big budget things. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see where we head to. The future of cinema is so uncertain. I feel like every time we've had a conversation, like every single year, and we've talked about a movie that's kind of hit the zeitgeist, it feels like cinema's heading one way and then it doesn't, and it goes a different way. Like this is one this year. Last year was a different one. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Like it feels like we're having like it's not a death, but it's like a metamorphosis, but it can't decide what it wants to turn into, and it keeps every single time it's like changing bit by bit.
What I think is kind of interesting, though, is like you mentioned the Supergirl example, and I wonder if the Supergirl example is actually the answer to your question at the end there, because I think maybe what we're realizing is actually these two things that appear to be diametrically opposed are just the same thing. Because you made a joke about A24 earlier, which you should, because A24 is just become an aesthetic. It's just become a brand where the producers at A24 have notes about what an A24 movie should look like, but they coast on the prestige of pretending to be independent horror movies. And this is similar, right? Like this is produced by Blumhouse. Blumhouse has got all of the big, massive horror IP. There was a big controversy about the art director for this movie not getting paid and this movie not being like a union production. And there's a ton of
fuck this movie.
Right, yeah. There's a ton of like indie movies happening, but it's hard for me to call this like a real indie movie because it does have a level of institutional support that even in the filming and post-production stage that real independent movies simply don't have. And in one sense, this and Supergirl are not too different because they are kind of trying to cash in on a trend or a style of filmmaking that has historically drawn returns, and so it just gets to perpetuate the formula. I mean, I think part of the reason the Talk to Me director's follow-up, Bring Her Back, isn't good at all is because it's just kind of aping the general aesthetic of the previous movie without anything else to say. And a lot of these people that get popular making low budget horror movies that get churned out by whether it's Blumhouse or Neon or A24, they all kind of end up the same way because they're all just doing footnotes to each other. They're all just copying the same aesthetic that got popular one time and then repeating it ad nauseum. And they're being greenlit by production companies and distributors precisely because their aesthetic vaguely mirrors something that was popular once before. And the big thing now is just like it's hard to make real true indie movies without getting into bed with production companies like Blumhouse. And the second you do, well, you're not really an independent movie anymore.
I don't know the studio drama behind this stuff. I don't know, like, are we at the point where the studios are just going out and, like, getting a YouTuber and, like, hey, kid, get in our van, we'll give you $100 to make a movie. And,
oh, no, literally. Yeah, that is literally where we are.
Yeah,
that's exactly what's going on.
I mean, it kind of feels that way, and I'm just like, okay, I guess that's a model, and like you'll probably get some real creative shit, but also, I don't know. There's a lot of people that are just they think they can make a movie, or they think they've got like a lot of creativity, but it does take a certain kind of personality to like lead a production versus make a movie in my backyard with my friends that I don't think people like really understand, and so it doesn't surprise me that like the creative energy can turn out one movie that's like maybe moderately successful or could even be like pretty damn good, but then like that doesn't necessarily come with the kind of drive and creative energy and fucking emotional manipulation required of an individual to really like be a like named director like a Tarantino or a Nolan or whatever.
Well,
I don't know.
The real depressing thing is...
Go ahead, Steve. You can go.
Oh no, sorry. I was just gonna say the real depressing thing is like the story of your Martin Scorsese's and your Peter Bogdanovich's and your Brian De Palma's is those kinds of guys could never get hired again the way that they were originally hired because of how this stuff gets produced now. You're never going to see a movie critic who knew really legendary American directors then get offered to make a truly independent movie. Like that model simply doesn't exist anymore. And I mean, other people like Richard Linklater have talked about this, of like how the independent model that he kind of thrived on and got his name on doesn't exist anymore. And the second he said that, the movie he was trying to find distribution for got sold to Netflix. And now it just exists perpetually in Netflix and everyone's already forgotten about it.
Ouch. That sucks.
The thing that reminds me of is there's two sections. You guys remember that whole story about like when the comic companies went to the UK trying to find other Alan Moores?
Yeah.
It reminds me of that. It reminds me of just like, oh yeah, we got some money from this. Oh, yeah, they don't live in the country anymore, but YouTube, let's scour YouTube. Oh, okay, fan films. Oh, I see you, Slenderman. Okay, fuck it. Backrooms. Like they're just scanning Reddit threads for ideas, and just see like who was the poster. Can he make a movie? Fuck it. Anyway, here's $1 million. So there's that, but there's also the sad aspect of, I think a lot of these people, YouTube has kind of replaced the small budget film that you just kind of share around cons or like in circles that gets your name out there. Like that doesn't exist anymore. The way to build a resume, like I remember the director of Shazam, he got his start from making YouTube short horror movies as well. And then he upgraded from there and then he eventually landed the Shazam gig. That seems to have replaced the whole idea of like when you go to film festivals and you see independent movies, because those independent movies are still being shown at film festivals, but they're also being debuted first on YouTube. Because as good as that is, if you're trying to get an audience, or at the very least trying to maybe earn something from it, you can put ad revenue on something, right? You can try and a lot of these things don't get really huge views from standalone films, but it builds a resume in the same way that, oh, I made a couple of smaller pictures and now I jump and I get a studio to give me a bigger shot. That doesn't really exist anymore because every studio wants every movie, every person's first shot to be the bigger shot. They want every single person's fingers like, hey, if we're bringing you on, we want this to be a big hit. We don't just want this to be like, oh, we'll make it up for DVD sales. Like, it doesn't work like that anymore. You have to kind of justify even if you don't get a lot of revenue, you have to be like, oh, we're gonna make money in other ways. Like say the Terrifier movies, right? Like, that when it first debuted didn't have as much of a cult following as it does today, but now Art the Clown's like an institution of like every time you go to Spirit Halloween, you see Art the Clown shit. Like stuff like that is more where people are. What used to be like, if you look at how Christopher Nolan, how he built up his resume, like he would never be able to do that these days. You can't get the movies that let Christopher Nolan build to slowly become Christopher Nolan. They just don't. They just don't make those anymore.
Again. I'm trying to remember.
I think, Steve, do you know?
What was the question?
Nolan's first movie.
The Following? Or Following. I think it's just called Following.
Yeah, the black and white one. I remember that one was funny because there's a Batman sticker in the door on one of the shots of the apartment building. Like, I don't even fucking remember what that movie's about. Like, it's not like I had a bad time watching it. I remember I did, like, a Geeky Gentleman on that fucking years ago. But I couldn't tell you a fucking thing that movie's about right now off the top of my head. It does not stick in my mind at all, but yet he's, like, you know, the biggest auteur director of our time and shit. And, like, fucking what was it, Robert Pattinson was getting shit because he was the only one asked to join the Odyssey that wanted to read the script first. As everyone else like, Christopher Nolan, I'm signing right the fuck up. And Robert Pattinson's like, can I see the script? It's really funny. But yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I just couldn't tell you a single detail about Following.
I love that Pattinson's kind of become a regular collaborator with Nolan ever since Tenet, because he's in Tenet and then he gives Nolan a copy of American Prometheus, which leads him to make Oppenheimer, and then he immediately comes back to Robert Pattinson for the Odyssey. I hope he's just a Nolan guy forever now.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Just make him the new Matt Damon.
He's between Batman movies, that's for sure, so he can film on.
Yeah. I mean, and to kind of segue back around on some of this, Robert Pattinson's another really good example of like one of the few people that clearly seems to have more of their ear to the ground and is looking for actual like independent filmmakers and young filmmakers to work with. Like prior to him being in Batman, he was just making those kinds of small time movies, and all of his best performances are in those kinds of films. Like Good Time's a really good movie, and that movie's directors eventually went on to make Marty Supreme, but he likes those kinds of small, weirder roles, and those are the kinds of things that become more and more difficult to come by when every single minor success has to be reverse engineered and basically drained of all of its utility until everyone's sick of it, and then we have to try and find something else.
I mean, I guess that's not like entirely new. I feel like that's been going on for a long ass time. It's just maybe not hit like the filmmakers, the directors as much before. Because I feel like that's what happened with like a lot of like child stars and like young talent. Particularly like within the music industry, is they just get used up to like put out as many hits as quickly as possible before they like got wise enough to negotiate their own contracts and shit. And you know, I'm sure there are examples with like the filmmaker or the auteur, but just it's not as prevalent because that's like a more you're just in more control naturally by the position of the filmmaker. I don't know.
I think the difference now though is we're now doing it in a way where you are not leaving enough resources for your replacements to be born. it's a little bit like what's going on with Marvel lately, and DC to an extent, but definitely with Marvel, where like you've made the working conditions there so bad for so long that at a certain point people are just not going to work there anymore, which means you have less and less people to exploit, and after a while there's just nothing for anyone to do there because no one wants to work there.
Yeah, it's been really, really bad how Marvel just has no one working there these days. It's kind of shocking.
And I mean, honestly, I think DC's on the same road. I think they just hide it better.
Yeah, they've just bought themselves some more time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's that the problem we've run into in like the current culture is just like we've spent decades on unsustainable formulas, but we are finally reaching a breaking point where it seems like the lack of sustainability is now catching up with us.
To go back to the movie, because we
Oh, you wanted to talk about like the filmmaking environment, and I feel like that's pretty.
it's more
pretty on
interesting.
point there.
Trust me, I'm there. I just wanna to kind of I don't know. I guess we're probably a good time to start heading towards an end. But one thing I did want to talk about just with the movie itself, it's not really a segue, but just I wanted to make sure I got this point across. There's like that whole scene when he leaves the door and she just starts pissing herself, wish Nikki starts pissing herself, and people have been talking about that one as like, oh, it's meant to show like this is either like an animal response, or oh, this is commentating on how horrible these punishments are, etc., whatever. But like I just wanted to think that's an example where I feel the movie is trying to say that, hey, this idea of she cannot exist without him, she cannot function without him, and this is the state he's brought her to, like she doesn't even exist when he's not there. And I understand that there's a point in the movie showing like the horror of that, but I also feel like to go back to the very, very start, we talked about like the uncomfortable reaction to the movie and kind of how it takes stereotypes of mental illness or BPD, where people have a narrative on you're so difficult to deal with, like why are you like this, why can't you be this way. And I go back and forth if the movie itself is making that point, but I definitely think a lot of bad actors have taken that as kind of like, yeah, Bear's the bad guy, but ooh, that was a lot, right? And if you've ever been with someone who has these issues, or has something that is like a stereotyped version of these issues, this is something you shouldn't watch. You shouldn't go for this because you're gonna get traumatized remembering your own prior relationships. And I just that's something I've seen a lot, and that shit really kind of rubs me the wrong way. That shit, I feel like the movie itself doesn't do enough to walk itself away from that interpretation of it, that I do think can be quite harmful and can lead to people being like, this movie is really, really hard to watch, especially with an audience, because of like how much it seemingly villainizes stereotypes about people who maybe had to deal with people calling them that their whole lives, or people thinking that this was okay to make fun of them as if they acted like that in a real setting, like creating their own narratives about people like that, I guess. Quote unquote being difficult.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm torn on that. On the one hand, I think you're right that the like idea of stereotypes or whatever might be like leaned on too heavily for the movie. Of like, oh man, this one time I had this crazy girlfriend who just she couldn't function without me. To try to make Bear more sympathetic, which again I feel like is, I guess I'll give it a point for attempting complexity in filmmaking, but maybe they went too far with it. If you need people to explain that he's actually the bad guy of the movie,
Yeah.
but at the same time, there is this level to which we kind of just have to accept that filmmaking and storytelling as a whole kind of needs to depend on a certain level of shorthand and stereotypes. Um, Not necessarily that that's a good thing, but it's just kind of a reality. I think we talked about this a little bit in a previous episode. I think we did a whole episode on stereotypes. Um, and like, are they always bad, or sometimes are they just like a shorthand? Because ultimately, a film probably shouldn't be the one responsible for portraying a like perfectly accurate picture of XYZ person or mental illness or what have you. That should be more on the culture to just evolve to the point where a stereotypical portrayal isn't engaged with enough because we've just moved beyond the stereotype. Um, and so I'm a little I guess I'm a little torn. I could agree, but at the same time, for me personally watching this, I didn't feel like it was leaning on those stereotypes too heavily. Uh, but that might just be my own interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get the mental health stereotype side of this. I think the movie's pretty effective at just showing you that Nikki's behavior is caused by this possession thing that's happening with the One Wish Willow thing, and that her entire subservience to Bear is a byproduct of what he did to her and nothing of her own choice. And I feel like the when she like breaks out into lucidity every now and then and is seeing what's happening, I didn't really read that as a BPD thing either. I thought the movie was pretty clear on the idea that like those moments are there so that you can understand the person that Bear has wished away, and that the person he thought he loved didn't actually exist in the first place. And I mean, I think if you're going to make the argument that the movie is doing those things in a way that's detrimental, I just don't know if there's enough to support an interpretation of the movie that says that's what it's actually doing. In part because the movie is just kind of it's not super clear on a lot of things, so I don't know if you can construct a coherent argument that it's doing a thing that's different than the one thing it's trying to do very obviously and already kind of failing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might just be a thing of it's leaning on the stereotype a little bit, but it has to be like pulling inspiration to show things from something. And this might go back to something we touched on a little bit earlier of like the lack of life experience. We're talking about a very young director, so
Yeah.
I do notice that like there is this tendency. A lot of people are like really, really embarrassed by their writings when they were young,
Yeah.
or new or fresh, and I think that's like something that every creative goes through because they'll look back on it and they'll realize how much of it is dependent on cliches and stereotypes and just incredibly derivative. One of my favorite stories about Jim Morrison is he always wanted to be a poet. And then he kind of like had this meandering career where he was like he went to film school, he made a film. It's not a very good film. Then he got into the hippie movement and became the lead man for a little band known as the Doors. And then he was kind of like done with the Doors after a while, and he wanted to go back into poetry, and that's the point at which he wrote like his best stuff. But like he talked about in like his autobiography or something that he wrote. I think it was in his first book of published poetry. He talked about it in high school. He had notebooks and notebooks just filled with lines of quotation that he had copied from other things that he'd read that inspired him, and he would just constantly like be copying and rewriting these things. And he said the greatest creative decision he ever made was to throw those books away. And I think that's like something that's like really really powerful is the shedding of that like young previous self, the like as a creative, the strength to walk away from the thing that you've moved beyond, but at the same time, I do think that there is like an unnecessary level of embarrassment for older creators to be so condescending to their previous work. I think like the most extreme example of that I have is Adam Driver will not sit for any screening of his performances ever. like he fucking walked out of an interview because they played a clip from one of his movies, and I just found that really funny. That to me is like, you know, there's extremes of moving past the stage of just copying to just being like completely unable to deal with anything from your past. There's clearly like a healthy middle ground there, but I think that might be kind of a long way around, a long walk for a short drink of water here. That might be kind of what we're seeing there. Is this might not be a very friendly or whatever interpretation of this action. It might depend on certain stereotypes of mental illness, but it's also from a really young, new, fresh director who just got in a van and was offered a movie deal, you know, from the studio. So, like, how much should you expect it to be the perfect representation of things, or have we just, as a society, not like gotten to the point where a really like blasé stereotypical depiction of mental illness and symptoms thereof just doesn't work for us anymore? And clearly we haven't, if this movie has been as successful as you say it has. So I don't know, long way around there.
No, that was a very good point, both of you.
All right, well, I don't know, I had one more thought on this that I wanted to talk about, and I think hopefully the answer might be no, but we'll see how this director's life turns out, if you might have to go back to this well. Do you think we're seeing the birth of the One Wish Willow franchise? Do you think?
Yes, they have. You are. They are.
Oh, they're doing it again. It's gonna be like the motif.
He said he wants to do a different thing where he specifically referenced the Twilight Zone, where like we'd look at different people making different wishes, and One Wish people are like 3D printing One Wish Willows, and it's kind of becoming like a marketing thing. As like the piece of merch that you can make from this movie, I guess, is that they are absolutely planning on doing that and making like a One Wish Willow, I guess,
cinematic universe.
yeah.
I mean, it at this point, right? Like, you could have just do that as like a TV show, do like 20-minute Twilight Zone episodes for like 13 episodes a season, and just do random horror stories. Like, that's not a very novel concept.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I guess I was looking for a thumbnail. I made the thumbnail while we were doing the episode this week, and I was just, going through Google Images, and I keep seeing One Wish Willow, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I wonder if we're going to just spin off and have a One Wish Willow franchise here. And it's not like the worst thing, but it is going to get a little old if it just keeps being Monkey's Paw. I kind of need it to just not fucking work at some point or something. Like, the whole fucking Reddit thread of, no, it doesn't work, it's just a collectible, and anyone who opens the box is an idiot, versus, no, it totally works, and the one guy, I wish for $1 billion. Well, clearly it worked. What are the conditions in which it needs to work? I need to know! I need the lore, baby!
It's like a really subtle wish, which like does work, but like it's just like
it only works if you don't think it's going to. Is that the plan here?
I was like, oh man, my best friend, like I love him, but he just fucking stinks. I wish he would just shower more. And then it's like, yeah, he showers more. Also, he's a serial killer, but turns out he was a serial killer before that. The wish had nothing to do with it. He's just.
He's just a serial killer that showers, and somehow or other, not showering was the thing that was letting him get away with it.
Yeah, because it's like, oh well, he stinks anyway. You never notice the blood.
I'm just picturing that there's like some decrepit factory in like Detroit or something, and they've just got a wizard who's like 90 years old sitting there trying to enchant every one of these fuckers, and he just misses one.
He's like, oh man, I used to be in my fucking prime, man. I used to elect dictators. I used to be this fucking thing. Now I'm just fucking on this. I'm an Etsy witch.
Literally.
All right, so we've heard Alfie's pitch. Steve, what's your pitch for a One Wish Willow movie? What's your what's A24 or Blumhouse gonna pull up in the van and give you $100 to make?
All right. You have a guy who goes to the store and he buys one of these, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't break because he's already granted a wish. And the rest of the movie is him discovering what did he wish for. And then at the end, the twist is that he was never born.
Incredible.
All right, let's hear for my One Wish Willow pitch. It's gonna be that someone gets it, and like I'm gonna go with the conceit is you have to think it won't actually work. So I'm gonna go with the I wish I was never born thing, and then it's just gonna be like a full on. It's gonna be the Christmas special One Wish Willow movie. Gonna get a Christmas One Wish Willow tree. And it's just gonna be like the It's a Wonderful Life, except the world actually improves greatly by this one person not being born, and they just have to like deal with the consequences of that.
Honestly, though, that feels like it'd be great. Imagine that you get to end your suffering and the world's a better place. That seems awesome. Just move on with your life.
No, but like that's the thing is like now they're pissed. Now they're like actively mad because they were holding the world back the whole time, and they didn't want to like actually know that because like it's the cry for help thing was what it was really supposed to be, and the fact that it's like no, actually you are holding the world back. Just kill yourself. It's just the saddest fucking revelation that could possibly happen. That's my One Wish Willow pitch. Ladies and gentlemen they're still listening, an hour or so in, please leave your comment on what your One Wish Willow movie pitch will be, and we'll see which one actually gets made. This might be a South Park predicting Adam Sandler's twins kind of situation if we get enough comments. All right, well I think that'll do it. Let's go ahead and go on to ratings then. I will give this like a 3 out of 5. Andy Richter randomly showing up as a fucking background character.
That was a jump scare.
Like I thought I saw it at first. I'm like, is that fucking who is that? And then like you get a good look at him, like it's fucking Andy Richter. Where's Conan O'Brien at?
I'll give this 3 out of 5 bricks to the face.
Pretty rough. For me, I'm gonna give this 2.5 out of 5. Nice dates. I thought we were having.
Oh, all right. Well. I can't help but feel like we've already done this, and I usually don't announce the episodes anymore, but because it just becomes too hectic and too much of a, what are we gonna talk about? But this conversation has led me to think that it'd be good to do an episode on this again, even if we maybe already have. So next time, I want to talk about the role the audience plays in a viewing of a film or play or what have you. I want to talk about the role of the audience, the reaction to what you're seeing on screen as a collective group, or a screen or stage, what have you, and just what that experience does to change the perception of a film. So yeah, I think that'll be a good discussion topic for next week. It's been a little while since we've done one of those, so this inspired me and gave me the idea, so I really wanted to jump onto that. So please join us for that next week. Until then, everyone, thanks for watching. I'm the Philosopher.
I am the champion of the One Wish Willow.
And I am the Luddite.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
Do, 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 do.